Yeah, high capability, low passion. Why is that burnout? Well, this comes from a model that um, Shane Stewart shared with me, who is one of our Passion Map coaches. And before we start, you might like to reflect on, if you've had burnout experiences, what were they actually like? But let me introduce the model. My plan tonight is to introduce this model, and perhaps you'll get some interesting ideas about capability and passion. And the model is very interesting. But before we do that, what is passion? We say it's the energetic drive to reach what we love. So it's actually energy. We've asked people all around the world to tell us what they think passion is. And basically, everyone has a different definition, but when we ask them how they feel when they feel passionate, the overwhelming experience of people all around the world is that they feel physically energized. So that's what we're using as our idea of passion. I'm just going to go back a couple of slides. What do we mean by burnout? And burnout's, what we say here is a state of complete mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. It's not stress necessarily, and it's certainly not depression, although some of them can be, in some senses they're related. So now this is the fundamental model I wanted to introduce. High capability, low capability, high passion, low passion. And I wonder where you are in that little grid. But first of all, low capability, low passion. That's a not very nice place to work from. And what we call that is slow death. There's nothing there for you. It just wears you out and you don't know what you're doing. And, too many people are actually in that place. Now, we all want to be up here, high capability, high passion. That's fulfillment. And we're sort of almost jealous of people who live in that place. Not all that many of us do that, living and working in that place. So down the bottom right is what I would call the development quadrant, and that's where you don't have the capability, but you have plenty of passion. And there is a pathway from there to fulfillment. And then finally, what I'm calling burnout here, which is high capability. You're doing things, you're very capable about doing it, so you can do them over and over, but there's no passion, there's no energy coming in. It's all energy going out. So I don't know how you feel about that as a framework. It's we're all in different parts of this model. We're not necessarily in the extremes, but we're all somewhere there. And we all aim to get to the fulfillment square or the fulfillment quadrant. Now, I've actually experienced burnout, and it's a really awful place. I was in financial services world, and people would ring me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to make big decisions, and I wasn't enjoying it, and it was enormous pressure, and had very high capability and no passion. And I burned out. It took me quite a long time to actually come out of that, perhaps a couple of years. So I'd like to just talk about, how do you actually get out of the burnout quadrant? If you are feeling burnt out and you want to get to having a fulfilling work environment or work, how do you get there? Well, you'd think you just go across there from that to that, find something that you're passionate about with the same capability, and away you go. But unfortunately, you can't, because you can't make yourself passionate about something. You can't learn to be passionate about something. Passion is unique to you and not unique to your passions are only yours. And the mistake people make is try to find a way out of burnout into a different place, but that requires has high capability and high passion. Now, maybe if you're in a work environment, you can negotiate something like that. But the usual way out of it is to go through development, to get to a stage where you know where you want to go. It's energizing you, it's driving you, and then you can move forward. So you obviously don't want to go down to slow death. It's hard to go directly to fulfillment because you need to have different passions. And so that's what we would think as a pathway, different from what we normally would expect. So, having trouble with my, sorry, I just get with you. So, I want to talk about what we can do if we actually have burnout. So, how do we start? How do we move? Well, for a start, we have to accept where we are. We have to accept that it's okay to be where we are, even if we are totally exhausted, even if we don't feel as though we have any energy at all. We have to start somewhere, and we start somewhere which is where we are. So we're not fighting against ourselves, we're just allowing it to be, and to try and find the clarity to actually move forward. Now, any of you who are coaches will know how powerful it is to help people to just be okay with what's going on. So the other aspect of starting this journey to fulfillment is to be curious about what it feels like for you. Be curious about the way you feel, what you think, how you see yourself, how you connect with yourself. Be really curious. And I think what we're doing there is we're moving into our observer self, so we can actually see ourselves in a different way, and we can move ourselves in a different way. Now, one of the things I've learned about this is that one of the keys for dealing with burnout at the office is actually at home. My experience is that, sometimes things are not going very well at work. And then, the tendency is to work harder and harder and harder, and then to ignore the things that really, juice us up and make us feel energized and alive. So I've got a few tips here and I'll explain them as we go through. First is know what your passions are. Each of our passions bring us alive in different ways. I have a saying that if you're not fully living your passion, you're not fully alive, because it's the life force in action. It's if you don't know what they are, then find out. Do something. There's all sorts of ways that people suggest you can follow online. We have a particular way because we treat passion as energy. So in order to know your passion, it's important to know how the energy of passion arises in your body. Spending time in nature. Now, this comes from basically thousands of passion maps. And a passion map actually pulls together all of the different things that bring us alive in different ways. The most common element of a passion map is being in nature. Again, it doesn't matter where it is. So spending time in nature in the way that most nurtures you is guaranteed to start to get some energy happening in your body, start to recover from a state of burnout. Obviously, if you are recovering, you're also recovering physically, you're also recovering mentally and emotionally. So you just need to do some basic things that make you feel healthy and well. There's water, sleep, exercise, meditation, etc. There are others. Whatever makes you feel, like great in your body and healthy and well and vital in a physical sense can never hurt. And then emotionally, connecting with loved ones and sharing your experience of burnout is a beautiful way to not only bond with people, but to just notice, give you an opportunity to notice how important loved ones are and what they physically do. How do you feel differently when you see them? And finally, live your passions, live your life passions. I'm making a distinction here between life passions and work passions. And typically we know from the passion mapping experience that about 3/4 of passion elements are actually not work, and 1/4 are about work. This is stereotypically, and especially in bigger organizations where people live less of their passions in the organization. On the other hand, the time we spend at work is about 3/4 of our time. So we've got 1/4 of the things that bring us alive, or our passions are totally for 3/4 of our time. And we've got 3/4 of our passions for 1/4 of our time, which is non-work. So in order to live your passions, there's a different strategy for how to do it at work and how to do it in your other life, which I've called at home. Excuse me. Now, work, it's a different strategy. You need to know your passions. You want to find purpose in your work. Purpose is a strange capacity we have and we can find. I won't go into it here. I mean, I may run a webinar at some stage about passion and purpose and how they work together. But there's something about finding purpose in your work. Finding something bigger than yourself in your work. Observe yourself in work. Again, it's continuing this curiosity. Because we spend so much time there, as I said, normally 3/4 of our life, or except on holidays, obviously, but we spend most of our time there. It's really, really important to notice what brings us alive and what takes our energy away. Because ultimately, for our own good, we need to negotiate something different if it's not working. Discovering a goal beyond. Now, this is something that I've come across in coaching space. I remember having a woman come and work with me who was an HR director, and she was going to leave the company, and she hated that she was burning out. But what she found through a visioning exercise is that she could have a real goal or objective for a life beyond the place where she was working. So she saw her work in terms of a stepping stone to something bigger, stepping stone to a greater goal, and that suddenly made her work meaningful and passionate and enterprising. And finally, at work, negotiate change. You're the only one who knows what is best for you. Negotiate something that works for you. Again, not easy unless you go through a whole process of observing yourself, observing how, what makes you come alive, and observing yourself when you get de-energized. So, why is this so? Why is it that passion can play such a big part? Well, the first thing is that passion brings us alive. Our passions bring us alive, body, mind, spirit, heart. And they don't all bring us alive in the same ways. They all bring us alive differently, but they do have the ability to bring us out of this place. They do have the ability to give us energy. And generally, passion brings us energy. Have you ever noticed when you're very tired and then you suddenly go and do something that you love doing? You know, whether it's playing with a dog or children or going to the beach, or you do something and suddenly you have all the energy in the world. So that's a pretty amazing quality. And it also is enduring. Passion endures. It's possibly the most stable thing we have in our lives. In this crazy world that we're living in with so many changes, passion doesn't change very much. You know, our emotional states change, our physical states change, our work changes, our relationship with our family changes, our connection with our partners or lovers change. So to understand your passion, it gives you a great stability in life. So that's another issue, or another quality of passion, to feel really stable. And another one is they're unique to you. Passions are absolutely unique to you. And what we've found with working with thousands of people is that not only are they unique to you, but they interact with each other. The energy of each passion interacts with other passions in a unique way. So there's a lot of healing that can happen through passion. Again, a time for another topic. So this is a quote that I really like. Your passion is the most powerful expression of who you are as a unique individual. Passion brings inspiration, excitement, clarity, and purpose in your life and work. So by accentuating what you're passionate about and seeing your passion as a key part of who you are, not just something that happens to you, it can be a very fulfilling and powerful place. So that's pretty much over to you. My assistant was saying, I have to finish this with a funny video, so this is it. So I think that was a cat with lots of passion but no capability. Again, not a nice place to be. So I'd like to open this to you, and there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and feel free to ask anything at all, anything that you find interesting, and we'll have another 10, 15 minutes of questions. So just 1 second. Well, it doesn't mean that it doesn't look like we have a lot. How does a cycle from burnout to fulfillment occur? From Kate. Thank you very much. Great question. I think if I go back through the process that I suggested, and I hadn't really, I didn't really think of it as a cycle. I thought of it more as a process for moving from a place of burnout. And I guess if we think of it as a cycle, it means you'll go back to burnout, which is not what I want to do. In a place of burnout, we feel exhausted. We just don't have any energy. We don't have any sort of motivation. We feel physically flat. So I think the first thing is actually just to accept that. That's okay. It's the way it is. And we're doing the best we can in the circumstances we have. And to be curious about what brings us to this place and how do we experience this place. So what we're doing is we're moving to the observer in us. It might be the same sort of sense of the observer who watches us meditate. And then from there, understanding what you are passionate about and also noticing what burns you out. Because ultimately we want to replace what burns us out with something that fulfills us. And that can only happen through self-awareness. It can be done with the help of a coach. It's very, very much more effective to do that experience, go through that transformation. Because it is a transformation. It's a transformation, body, mind, spirit transformation. And once you have that sense of what's working, then what one needs to have a sense of what will work. So we're looking at two things here. Well, you're looking at changing a role or negotiating a role within your business, or you're looking at changing your business entirely. And that will depend on a number of things, but particularly what energizes you and what actually takes your energy away. And then from there, it's a question of doing it and making the transformation and creating the new habits in the new place. So you have a habit of feeling a particular way. You can create a habit around, having a particular rhythm in the day. And so, you do what you need to do. So thanks for the question. That's a lovely question. Okay. I have another question here. Sometimes, although passion and capability are there in abundance, circumstances can frustrate progress, and thus burnout can occur from multiple times of headbutting, include jumping hurdles, hiking around the mountains, and climbing cliffs. Time to quit and let the universe take its time to deliver. I think I touched on that briefly when I talked about, it's about how we respond to those. How do we respond to the headbutting? How do we respond to being blocked? Our life force and our passions are trying to take us in a particular direction if we let them be that way. If we don't notice them, then we can also go into headbutt situations which aren't effective for us. So I think there's a sense of attitude here. I once worked with a guy who would never take no for an answer. And it was almost as if you want to go from A to B, you can go to A to B. If there's a hurdle, you go around the hurdle. If you can't get around the hurdle, you go over the hurdle. If you can't go over the hurdle, you go underground until you can get to the other side. And then if you can't go underground, you go the whole way around the world and get to the place in a different way. So sometimes I think we also see these hurdles, challenges, as a way of stopping us rather than helping us to be alive. I used to have a saying that I thought life would start as soon as we got over the hurdles. But in fact, life was the hurdles. And I hope that answers your question. So there's another one, what are my experiences in implementing the cycle? Well, I've worked with people who've got to a burnout place. And of course, excuse me, my work is centered around passion. So it's going to be, it's going to be present in all my work. So I have a multitude of experiences of working with people and helping them to find their passion and how they bring that alive and become different people. So I'm starting from that place. I guess I'm also reflecting on my own practice of being burnt out. And how did I do that? I think the first time, well, I've only really been burnt out once, big time, and I didn't have these skills. I have no idea how to actually consciously look at who I was. I was in a place where I resisted where I was. There's something wrong. I'm burnt out. There's something wrong here. Well, there's not something wrong. It's just a matter of knowing what's happening and having the insight to do that. So that's my answer to your question, Uwe. Well, I think we might leave it there. If anyone has any final question, I'll take it now. Just a second. So, thanks, guys. That's great to have you, and I'm honoured that you spent the time listening, and hope you learned something. Thank you very much. Goodbye.